In the 135-year history of Chico State, she is the first female president.
My first hurdle was probably personal, and it was health. And here, the 6-year-old child is full of life. And I thought, if he can do it, I can find the strength. So at Chico State, we had to go online within 3 days. But now we're coming out of COVID, expecting the unexpected and finding a way to keep hope alive so that you can help the community navigate that path forward with you.
Well, I know you were a part of raising, I think, $106 million for student success and all kinds of other things that are going to live, of course, well beyond your tenure as the president. You go first.
No, you go first.
You go first.
No, you go first.
All right, as usual, I will go first. Hello, everyone. I am Lain Hensley, one of the co-founders of Odyssey Teams, and of course, your host at You Go First. So thanks for joining us for another installment. I've got an amazing guest today. I'm so excited. I am a Chico State grad. My mom graduated Chico State. My uncle graduated Chico State. My cousin Chico. Almost everybody at Odyssey, of course, in the beginning was Chico State grads, and today I have the president of the California State University of Chico. Gayle Hutchinson has been the president since 2016. In the 135-year history of Chico State, she is the first female president. And to make it easy on her, we had a almost dam break in Oroville, California. We had the Paradise Fire. And to top it all off, the trifecta, we had COVID-19. I'm sure you've heard of it. And she has been the leading through all of that. She's no beginner, though. She was the provost at the CSU of Channel Islands. And I didn't know that you had worked down there. You, of course, have your own degree, all kinds of life experience. I know you're active in Rotary and tons of leadership skills. So welcome to the podcast booth. Thanks for joining us for a conversation. And everyone, a good friend of Odyssey and friend of mine, President Gayle Hutchinson. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Lain. It's an honor to be here. And so I'm greatly appreciative. Thank you.
Yeah, well, of course, in the spirit, You Go First is built to look at people out there, whether they want to be in education, educational leadership, or just leadership in general, and glean any knowledge from you that says, in your career path, you hit a point and you could have stopped and you looked to yourself first and said, I'm going to go first to learn more, to reach out more, to network more. What would you say are some of the biggest stopping points you ran into in your career? How'd you get through those things and end up as the president? I know you're retiring this year, so
thank you.
This is the culminating. Now you look back and go, wow, how did I get here? And what were some big kind of hurdles you got over on your way to your role?
Sure. Thanks for the question. And gosh, I've had a 38-year career in higher education. 33 have been with the California State University, and 30 of those have been at my beloved Chico State. But I have to say, my first hurdle was probably personal, and it was health. And I am an insulin-dependent diabetic. I was diagnosed with that at age 26, and I literally thought my world was over. So I went through a crash course in learning how to live and taking care of myself and taking insulin injections and learning how to monitor all that. And I had goals at that time to earn my EDD in higher education and teacher education. And I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to do that. But I promptly found some incredible role models, one of whom was 6 years old. And one day when it was the day before getting out of the hospital, and there was a cohort of us who had just been in there learning that we have insulin-dependent diabetes. And this 6-year-old asked the nurses at the nursing station, can Gayle take me across the streets to the gift shop so I can buy a present for my mother? And the nurses said yes. And so this little boy and I, 6, go downstairs. And here I am, 26, thinking my world is over. And here the 6-year-old child is full of life. And he's talking to me not only about what he wishes to buy his mother and what a great day it was and what he's going to do with his life. And he's 6. That was my first role model. And I thought, if he can do it, I can find the strength and the will to learn to live a productive and wonderful, loving, living life, adventurous life. Yeah. And so that was my first step forward.
Wow. Well, you've certainly done that. It's interesting as far as medical. I know leadership for you is certainly not just an on-the-job kind of thing. It's a life thing. I know you're active in Rotary, and I know you lead in so many ways in Chico. And at the same time, first thing you got to lead yourself through those kinds of struggles. Our previous guest, which should be an episode right before you, is also insulin dependent and doing triathlons and stuff. I think you've completed triathlons.
I have, yes.
athletic events and things like that. So in the spirit of like, okay, so you find yourself as the first female president at Chico State. What would you say? I mean, we're certainly in a world of diversity, equity, inclusion, and making sure that we're looking around going, okay, how do we get everybody's voice to the table? What are some things that you've kind of consciously done as a real champion, of course, of, a women's movement, and at the same time pulling everyone else along with you through Chico State?
I grew up at a time in the 60s and 70s when the civil rights movement was just taking shape and truly active in this country, when the women's movement also was taking shape. And I also realized at an early age, I have two older brothers, that the world was really different for them as it was for me. The expectations for my brothers were different than the expectations for me. And I always wanted to go out and be adventurous and see the world and be my own person. So I think it started then. And then as I decided what I wanted to be when I went to college, I wanted to be a teacher. And my reason for wanting to be a teacher is to help young people, help children strive toward their potential, really create access and opportunity for kids, especially kids who are maybe down and out or kids who don't really get a chance, give them that opportunity. And that has served me well as I moved from being a teacher to an administrator, like a department chair, a dean of a college, a provost of a university, and now as president for the last 7 years. It is about access and opportunity for people, especially young people, but for all people, because people of all ages come to college, and providing opportunity for them to explore, discover, strive towards their potential, come to realize what their potential is, gain confidence in that, feel empowered to go on to do great things, either in career or in community or with their families.
Yeah. Well, you're preaching to the choir right now. Of course, I'm a huge advocate of Chico. My mom got a teaching credential from Chico State so long ago, but I know hope is a big part of your leadership principles, and looking at, I didn't know about that, the diabetes like that this little 6-year-old gave you, like, what, there's so much hope in your life still. I know for me as a struggling student, I went to American River in Sacramento. When I told my parents I was going to college, they were sort of like, why? Like, I wasn't in a family that was like, college is basically an extension of high school. My wife is graduating the nursing program at Chico State. And in her life, it was like, of course, you're going to be a nurse and you go to high school and then you go to college. So I found my way through the junior college system. I remember getting my acceptance letter to Chico State. It was like this unreal moment of like, I have a plan. I'm following my mom's footsteps. But so many students are kind of getting lost, I think, in, of course, the post-COVID world. We can certainly share with us how the school has evolved, how education has evolved from your perspective through COVID. And how do we reach out there and find those kids that are maybe about to fall out of the system and wake that up that, I know when I sat down with a counselor and was like, you could do this, this, and this, and then you get to Chico, sure, they'll accept you, and then you da-da-da. And it was happening like one class at a time, one day at a time, and then boom, I was distinguished alumni a few years ago. Like these miracles start to happen when you have a plan. So back up that question to like, what transformation have you seen in education what have you done to try to help pull those kids out of the woodwork and from them kind of disappearing and get them into education, whether they're learning to weld and be engineers or nurses or whatever. So a big question around just what you've seen evolving in education lately.
So education matters, number one. And my parents didn't go to college. And so I'm first in family to go to college. Going off to college was a really big, scary thing. But you're absolutely right. Once I was able to get to college and have a sense of belonging, I was an athlete, so my teams gave me that sense of belonging. Once we had that, I felt like I had a plan. And in having that plan, same thing, right? But what's important, education does matter. But what I like to tell prospective students, young people, older people, people who are looking for their way forward, I like to tell them that you got to find a passion. You've got to follow a passion, find a passion. It could be in welding. It could be in trades. It could be in becoming a teacher or an engineer. And there's educational opportunities, whether it's with a high school degree, community college, associate's degree, 4-year degree or master's or a graduate degree. So all of that is available, but we have to create opportunity access and opportunity for people to go and strive towards their potential and follow their passion. So then the campfire hits. Regional megafires throughout the state, other unprecedented climate effects, in addition to a global pandemic like COVID, which really shut everything down, but especially made us take an alternative path in higher education. So at Chico State, we had to go online within 3 days. So we had a week. It was spring break. It was this time of year. It was spring break and 3 additional days. So the students are off with spring break. Faculty have spring break and 3 days to get all of their coursework up online. And then we have to figure out a way to keep our students engaged.
Amazing.
And we did it. But now we're coming out of COVID and we recognize things as you recognize, which there are some students who are coming back already and they're happy to be back. They're craving in person. They're craving that sense of community. But we've lost 2 years of students being on campus. So the first to college come to campus. They've never been on campus before, but neither have the upper class people, right? So the sophomores and the juniors, it might be their first semester on campus. So we've had to spend a lot of time in person really helping students come together and learning to build community and build a sense of belonging and understand how we fit together on a campus. Same with faculty, same with staff. And at the same time, understanding that there are those who had access because it was remote and they can't really come for the in-person. Mm-hmm. So how do we sustain that online and sustain it in a way that gives them that sense of belonging and keeps them engaged? And then you add on top of that where we do the in-person really well and we do the online really well too. But there are things called broadband deserts. There are not opportunity for everybody to get a quality internet connection.
Yeah.
And we serve a lot of those kids. So that's part of the challenge. And then you've got students who might be in Chico who are choosing not to come out of their apartments. And how do we help those students re-engage in a in-person community as well?
Well, I have a million questions in my mind. I'm trying to think of really, the leadership qualities and the spirit of you go first. The idea is we're in all of that struggle, which I don't think any president has faced these kind of challenges at any university. I know you've become a real recognized leader in crisis management because not just COVID, but the campfire burned down the town. Our town's overrun with all these things. We're probably flooding right now here in California.
It might be cresting.
And you just got to be ready for anything. And
that's true.
How do you set up your staff, your community to be ready for anything? And how, as a leader, do you really model the qualities? What qualities do you think have led to your success as a president?
I think the ability to lean in. The ability to really truly believe, to expect the unexpected, to be ready at all times, to consider a position of leadership not as a job, but as a lifestyle that is truly embodied in everything that you do. So you're always role modeling, you're modeling, in addition to you're always thinking. I like to think that you have to be a visionary thinker as well as a strategic thinker, expecting the unexpected and finding a way to keep hope alive so that you can help the community navigate that path forward with you. And I've had incredible experience, and you're right, unprecedented challenges to the institution during the last 7 years. And with the Oroville spillway, the threat of the Oroville Dam possibly collapsing and the first evacuation of over 180,000 people, I had to enact our emergency operations center because we knew a lot of those people evacuating would be coming to Chico. In addition, we have students and staff and faculty who live in these impacted areas. And how do we help them out? By enacting Emergency Operations Center, which is a pretty prescribed way to approach emergencies, I knew of it. I had read our emergency plan, but every emergency is different. Every emergency has to have a tailored response. Every emergency requires problem solving. Every emergency requires not only relevant information in the moment, updated information, but the ability to evolve your problem solving and solution building along with it. So we had good practice with that. So, and unfortunately, when the campfire hit, I knew immediately that we had to get everybody together, and we stayed in the Emergency Operations Center day and night for 14 hours a day for 16 days straight as we're working and coordinating our emergency response, not only with the city of Chico and the communities up in the Ridge, but also with Butte County and then Cal OES, which is California Operations for Emergency Systems, and all the other first responders. And you have to be willing to lean in. And then you have to also understand that it's not at the moment. You cannot get tired. So through this, you have to realize it's a marathon, and you have to realize that in order to solution build and problem solve, you got to maintain your health, and you got to maintain the health of your team, which is you've got to figure out how to engage in self-care and the self-care of your team, and how you continually do that so you can make it to the finish line of the marathon, however long that's going to be.
Wow. Well, I know sometimes leaders, it's not always the decision you make, but how you get to those decisions that really creates your brand of like, are you getting information from other people? And then of course, tough decisions have to be made. You made tough decisions. I know we at Odyssey were a part of like onboarding the incoming freshmen in the dorms. We created videos and presentations, and then another round of COVID hit, and oops, sorry kids, we're not coming to school this year. You're back home. I have a daughter who just graduated Arizona State, and another that's at NAU in Northern Arizona. And it's weird because I really wanted them to go to Chico State, but it was like we grew up here, so it was like, go out there in the world. And everything their mom and I were trying to figure out is like, how do we find something like Chico? And people who don't know, Chico is a small town. We're a college town. The university is a huge piece. So when you're talking about your response to these crises, it was critical for Chico how the college would respond. It's
Absolutely.
A huge part of our economic structure, our community. Lots of students stick around, and there's just a comfortable, fun vibe to Chico. And
yes.
My daughter that went to Northern Arizona and ASU, my heart just breaks that they're not graduating with like 30 best friends and this whole network. Like Chico does a really great job of building network. Now, it could have been a generational thing. I'm in the 90s, late 80s. We didn't have phones and the isolation.
It's still happening.
There's still a community. It can happen.
It's still community, yes.
It can happen. So what do you think are like the biggest challenges facing young people today going into college as they're in social media, judgments in some way, peer pressures? What do you think are the biggest personal struggles that the students are facing right now?
I think young people today have incredible stressors, things that I did not have when I was growing up. And a lot of that is related to the access to social media and other online platforms. Additionally, I think it's incredibly hard to understand, based on what you're seeing online, what is fact, what is credible information, which makes it hard for, I think, a young person, for anyone, for that matter. Additionally, I know that we're able to identify mental health challenges better through diagnostics and all that. And I know that a lot of young people are suffering mental health. And so when you've got mental health challenges, when you've got difficulty understanding what is credible information, what is not credible information, and then perhaps you recede behind a screen as opposed to integrating and engaging in in-person community, I think that also doesn't help with the development of our young people. So a whole plethora of challenge. And our response as Chico State is, as it always is to really help identify what the needs of students are and then rally our support services in ways that we address that head on. And we're doing it. We're doing it, and I think we're doing it well.
Well, I know you were a part of raising, I think, $106 million for student success and all kinds of other things that are going to live, of course, well beyond your tenure as the president. What would you say are like your proudest accomplishments as you look back?
30 years at Chico State, being part of an incredible community, absolute amazing community, and not just Chico State, but the community at large. So that's one. As president, I would say the ability to help an institution that is an excellent, outstanding institution excel and thrive doing unprecedented challenges. Because we are. I mean, we achieved some university reaccreditation. We're still winning all kinds of awards. We've raised over $106 million in our first capital campaign, most of that over the last 7 years. Awesome. People really recognize Chico State as that academic powerhouse and activity powerhouse and the unique experience that we provide. And then on top of that, I've done a lot with the strategic plan for the university. So placing equity, diversity, and inclusion as our #1 university priority, along with civic and global engagement and resilient and sustainable systems. Those 3 priorities are really contemporary. They acknowledge what's happening in the world, and they acknowledge really the unprecedented challenges that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we're ready to help solve.
Well, you know, I travel a lot as a speaker and doing our leadership and team building stuff, and anywhere in the world I go, I'll say I'm from Chico, and somebody in the crowd, and you're 500. Chico, I went to the Bear, and they just have this immediate connection, whether it's through Sierra Nevada or through the university or through these great companies that are born out of Chico. There's just something really special. I can imagine just how much pride you felt when you got the job, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have a hold of the steering wheel of this organization. But with that comes huge responsibility, right? With great responsibilities, great power. What are the biggest fans of you would say, and what are the trolls say out there that are like, oh, she doesn't listen, or she's like this or that? I mean, just what's it like when you hear from the trolls or when you hear from the fans?
So I'll begin with the fans, and I think for the most part that I believe in inclusivity, equity, and diversity. I'm a proponent and advocate and partner for shared governance. Do that quite well. Willing to lean into the tough challenges, have the courageous conversations, and also do things in a way that help the university advance and take care of our students. #1, first and foremost, is taking care of our students and student success, and then doing so in a way that also takes care of our faculty and staff and the community at large. So I think that's what the fans would say. The trolls would probably say, I don't listen enough. And that they wish things were different in certain areas. Yeah. So I think it's always a double-edged sword, because if I look at things that they're complaining about, I have equal number of areas where we've been highly successful that are in the category of which they're complaining. I think Renee Brown, is that right?
Brene Brown,
say it again?
Brene Brown.
Yeah, Brene Brown. I think she said it well, and I know someone said it before her, is that it's easy if you're not in the arena really trying to make those tough decisions on a day-to-day, you really don't know what's going on. It's easy to be that armchair quarterback. So for the folks who may, and I wouldn't call them trolls, but folks who perhaps disagree with what I'm thinking and saying, okay. I think they're just not in the arena. They may not have all the information to understand how I was able to, or we were able to arrive at a decision.
Yeah, it's hard when somebody feels like, well, she doesn't listen. It means you might have heard them, but you just didn't make the same decision that they wanted. And it's like, I hear you, but I have all this other data that I have to balance. And like I said, you have really led through some of the most difficult times in world history, honestly. And a world history that, like you said, through media and social media and just so many pieces of information coming at people from 1,000 different directions. Of course, they're going to have misinformation, and they're going to question decisions. And that just goes with sort of this evolution that the world is kind of built for me, whether it's through my phone's algorithm. And now I'm living in a community that's not everything works out perfect for what I want. Now the exciting part is like, okay, so this is the end of your chapter as the president. I know you have a few more months to go, so that's exciting. Besides pickleball, I know people at Odyssey play pickleball. Besides pickleball, what's next for you? Do you have a book you're going to write? Are you going to go on a speaking tour? Are you're active in Rotary? What's some of your passions now that your role is going to change?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I will retire June 30. So I'm treating it like the track star who runs the race on the track, that you don't stop until you're a good 10, 15, 20 yards past the finish line. So we're full speed till the end of the semester, trying to get done all the things that I still think we have to accomplish as we make way for the new president, who I hope is incredibly dynamic and can help take Chico State to another level, which is going to be awesome to watch. For me personally, my wife has said that she really wishes for me to not do anything for a year. So let's just say that I'm collecting opportunities right now, and they're starting to show up. They're interesting.
Yeah.
And I will continue my community service. I wish to continue with Rotary and Sir Optimist and be helpful where I see need maybe in the community. And then I want to get healthier. I'm healthy, but I want to be healthier. I wish to get back to cycling and golf and pickleball, see where that can take me. Read more. I love reading history and economics and politics and the whole bit, so I want to read more. So I've got a stack of books that I really wish to get through. But perhaps the first thing I'm going to do is sleep.
A fair request to take a year, because I know the role that you've been in is certainly not one that, is a 9-to-5 job. It's, I'm sure, 24/7.
24/7.
And like you said, so many responsibilities, and all roads lead to you when it comes to like the big decisions that Chico has made. In the spirit of course, through COVID, I think enrollment dipped a bit for probably every university out there, and the virtual experience, as good as you can do it, it's still not as good as walking in a classroom and seeing and feeling the presence of your classmates and all that organic communication that happens when you're walking into class and you're building your network, you're building your family, this community. What would you say is like the sort of final piece to the puzzle of leadership, that if you could just impart like one piece of wisdom on anybody who's thinking of leading in education, at least, what do you think is sort of that? Is there a silver bullet, or is there any kind of last word that you could throw out there that you think is the guiding principle?
Gosh,
or a mentor that you have? Is there a voice in your head that drives you through the tough times? That's
so much, a lot of questions, but I'll try to answer really to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
So in terms of mentor, my folks are right when they said education matters, and I believe that fully. Education matters. It matters in order to take care of the individual who is pursuing education, whatever that may be, the family, their community, and also the nation, right? Democracy is dependent on an educated citizenry. Yeah. We have to be educated. So that's one. Secondly, for those who are maybe going into education, specifically higher education's at a transformative moment. We see nationwide that the number of high school students graduating from high school is declining because population has declined in that high school going age. There's also challenge out around the country about, is there value to a college degree? And I argue, yes, there is, but we have to really help everyone understand what the value of a college degree is, because it is highly valuable. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, it's really looking at now with COVID and with mega fire, unprecedented challenges that, like flooding or whatever, that require us to shelter in place or stay at home. How can we integrate that online experience better? And so for the university that really prides itself on an in-person experience for more than 135 years, wow. We're not going to be back fully in person. We're going to be back fully in person, but we're going to have this also full complement online, because that creates opportunity and access for those students who couldn't make that in-person experience. So how do we provide more for those who cannot come to us, and we meet them where they are in their communities, but still try to get them engaged in community, not just staying in their homes or apartments or whatever, and then maintain that Chico experience, both in person and online, so that when we're traveling the world and we run into someone with a Chico State sweatshirt, it's like, oh man, I love Chico State.
Special.
It is special, whether you learned in person or remotely.
Yeah, well, we've done at Odyssey, and what you're doing as well is it's not like we went virtual because of COVID. Now COVID's over, so let's get back in person.
Exactly.
Virtual is here to stay.
Yep.
The social media is here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
This ability to be in other parts of the world. I've had guests that are joining through Zoom or some virtual platform. I'm so thankful that you were able to set aside time. I think it's spring break right now when we're filming this, so you were able to make time for us here at Odyssey. I know you've been following us kind of from afar. Like I said, I graduated Chico. My business partner Bill was Chico, finance major. Todd was also a rec major. And I know for me, like you talk about education, when I was sort of on the fence whether I would go back to college at American River and get a degree, I was hanging out with some people that were going to Stanford and Berkeley and these other schools one New Year's Eve up in Truckee. And I was like, these people just talk different than the kind of folks I'm hanging out with as I was doing construction, trying to figuring life out. And I thought, I want to be educated. Like that was it. I didn't know really what I could do and where my skills were, but I just really landed on what you said. It says, you know what? I want to be educated. I want to be worldly. I want to know things about history and about, how to write better and how to use a computer, which was the beginning back then. But it's here to stay, virtual. I know I am very thankful. Ross is here. He's a Chico State grad in media as well. And he'll produce our video for us. But I just want to really extend the most heartfelt thank you to us at Odyssey Teams and to the You Go First family. Viewers out there, I hope that you've enjoyed the conversation with the President, Gayle Hutchinson, and the time that she's shared with us today. So with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to you personally.
Thank you.
And professionally, watching you, cheering for you. And you've really navigated our town and this university through some pretty darn crazy tough storms. And
crazy
we're in
times.
Good shape. So a big invitation to all of you out there. You're thinking about sending your kid off to college. My kids grew up here, so they'd start, I should go somewhere else. And really, honestly, I wish they had
Chico State.
Gone here. Chico State all the way. So with that, thank you. And thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Lain. And big hugs and love to you and the Odyssey team. Thank you.
Yeah, here, give me a hug here. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to another episode of You Go First. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you want to listen to another episode, you can find us at yougofirst.live, or you can see more about our host, Lain Hensley, on his Instagram at OneDreamChaser. To learn more about his company, Odyssey Teams Inc., go to odysseyteams.com or follow all their social media channels at Odyssey Teams. Thanks again, and we hope that you will go first to share our podcast with a friend or colleague. Now, you go first.
Don't forget to like us on the button below. Follow us by clicking the bell. You'll get all future episodes, as well as you can certainly find the podcast on the audio version everywhere where podcasts are found. So we're looking forward to the next episode. We've got a lot of really exciting guests coming up. Thanks for watching.